Perfect. I'm Yash. I'm the CTO here at WakeFit, and today I'm going to be talking about journey to the cloud. I found this quote really very resonating with whatever we want to talk about today. So there's a huge amount of digital transformation happening in India. A lot of companies are going through digital transformation, adopting cloud. So there's a huge change that's happening in our industry and in technology. And I think the key message is that if you are a business who has not adopted this yet, you have to quickly jump upon it, because the world is changing, and whether you are able to adopt and grow is what you want to do. About me, I started programming since I was 15 years of age. Got my own 286 computer. I used to stay back after school. And then my parents gave up, and then they bought a system for me. And from that point onwards, I knew that I wanted to do a career in computers. Over the years, I kind of developed a passion for consumer internet. I really like building products which can reach out to millions of users, and that building stuff for which has this huge scale and getting feedback from friends and family. I think that's what I like. I've been also very fortunate to work with some of the top consumer internet companies like Zepto, Hives, Myntra, Yahoo, and so forth. Oh, just one small thing. This is a photo in my 12th, when I finished my undergrad. So this was my project which I made, which was a tele-robotics project. A little bit about WakeFit. So WakeFit was founded in 2016 by Ankit and Chaitanya, and with the first to disrupt the mattress industry, gave a 100 nights trial, and we're now the market leader in many of the categories in which we operate in. A little bit on scale. So WakeFit is also scaling immensely. We are a digitally native brand, omni-channel brand. We have fully integrated supply chain and front-end systems, and all of our systems run on AWS. So we are a cloud company. These are the 4 things I want to talk about today. We'll first talk about digital transformation. Then we'll talk about cloud computing, and then strategies of moving to the cloud, and then just some takeaways at the end. So again, coming back to the first quote that I talked about, if you are an organization that's in India, I think the question is not why digital transformation, not even when. I think the question is that why have you not done it already, right? India has leapfrogged in technology. Internet adoption is very high. There's some interesting data point that I'm going to talk about, which will actually say how internet is actually penetrating and growing, even in the rural sectors, right? If you are doing a digital transformation journey, then cloud is definitely something that you should evaluate, and I would highly recommend that if you are moving to a digital presence, then definitely you should do it with cloud. And most importantly, I think all your consumers are already online, and they may not wait for you to complete your digital transformation journey. So it's very important to do it as soon as possible and as fast as you can. So we have promised to become the 3rd largest economy by 2030. Just the retail industry is going to grow to about 4.5 trillion by the end of the decade. Right? Everyone knows this. I think we have one of the lowest data costs in the world. So we are the 3rd position here, and India's promised to have 900 million internet users by 2025. That's a substantial amount of people who are there online. And if you're a business who doesn't have presence, you are actually missing out on this very important set of users. We're also a company, so while people do talk about India as very cost conscious, as premiumization may or may not work in India, but I think this number was very interesting. This was last year during Big Billion Day sale and the corresponding Amazon sales. We actually they were able to sell, Apple was about to sell 1.5 million iPhones in like 1 or 2 weeks. This was an incredible statistic. This data is very interesting. So while we always think about internet, we think about internet penetration, digital penetration, we're always thinking about tier 1 cities. But actually, in India, now the phase is for rural India to actually catch up. So currently, we have about 44% higher internet users, which will happen in rural. There's immense headroom. About 50% of our internet traffic is going to come from rural India going forward, the growth, right? And then 85 million smartphone users are sharing the mobile in rural India. So I think the point I'm trying to say is that digital transformation is not just tier 1, but actually rural India. So even if you're thinking your organizations are focusing on the mainstream of India, still I think digital transformation or having an internet presence is super important. This story we've already heard, so I'm just reiterating that. So UPI, again, the whole ecosystem, the country is moving towards digital payments, to digital technologies, and UPI is like one of the stellar examples. You can actually see the exponential growth in UPI payments all across. So basically, coming back to my earlier slide, digital transformation for Indian companies is not a question of when. It is like, why have you already not done it? Let's talk about cloud computing. So what is cloud computing? This is the Wikipedia definition. Cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer system resources with data storage. So I think the idea is that traditionally, I remember from my previous companies when I used to work with Yahoo or with Naukri, we used to have our own data centers, we used to buy our own servers, we used to put it, and that was a lot of management, a lot of effort and energy that used to go into that. And that was actually one of the key differentiators. So for a company to become successful in internet, to be a consumer internet company, you had to be a large enough company so you could actually manage and run your own data centers, run your own servers. And then you actually saw the trend changing. So earlier you had to build your own data center, then you started getting data center companies, you would just buy servers, put them in. Then the servers also started becoming, you could lease the servers, rent the servers. And now cloud is really cool because you don't need to worry about that. You can just fire an API and you can actually provision an infrastructure on demand. And the biggest game changing which cloud computing does is that now you don't need to be, it's actually democratized access to infrastructure to all companies. So you need not be this large, big company who has the resources to run their own data centers or manage their infrastructure. Even a small company, you can actually log into any of the public cloud providers and provision your own hardware. And because it's a pay-as-you-go model, you only pay for whatever infrastructure you're using, and the costs are a lot substantially lower than what it used to be in previous times. Right. So there are actually 3 types of cloud computing. If you define cloud computing, you can kind of break them down into 3 categories. We have infrastructure as a service, we have platforms as a service, and then we have software as a service. Right? So infrastructure as a service is largely, you will get what I talked about, where you can actually you can go to a console, or you can fire an API, you can get your computing power, and then you can run your own programs on top of that. Right? This is also available at a lower level. So you can also think of other hardware things. For example, people used to have hardware firewalls. A lot of those are also moving to software firewalls. The other one is platform as a service. In platform as a service, you actually have you have an environment, and you can actually use that environment and run your own software on top of that. Right? So examples of this would be, for instance, You can think of programs like cloud, like Salesforce, or you can think of programs like softwares uh, like uh, like Shopify, right? So you can actually have that as a platform, and you can actually build your own technology, and you can build your own programs on top and build your own custom programs, right? And then the last one is software as a service. This is fairly common now. So here you don't worry about hosting or anything. You just get a license to a software. You don't even need to run the software. It's already running on the cloud. You just use it, and then based on how you're using it, you actually just pay for that. So all maintenance, all upgrades, everything is handled by that specific company or that specific service. Right. So why are public clouds, or why is cloud computing so fascinating, right? I think one of the most important things is it's very easy for you to scale up and scale down. So I think this is one of the key things which a lot of companies face. So for example, I remember when I was in Myntra, when we used to prepare for these large sales, and at that time Myntra was not on cloud, right? So 3 months or 4 months before the sale, we used to kind of plan what is the number of users we're going to get, and based on that we would put orders for servers, then we would put those servers into the data centers, and then we would then install our software, install our applications on those servers. If your database server had to be upgraded, that was a huge challenge. You had to get that DB server, then you had to actually do a physical, you had to do a migration. All your softwares would actually move from one DB server to the larger DB server, and it was a very, very exhaustive and expensive exercise. Right? And because it was not easy to scale up and scale down, so let's say 1 month before you have the infrastructure, because you also want to run it and try it out, right? Then you're running it for a month extra, and then the sale, and then after the sale, it will also take you some time to retire. So roughly you're taking about 3 to 4 months to do the whole scale up, scale down journey. Compare that to what's available on public cloud. Maybe a few hours earlier, or if you want to be a little bit more careful, maybe 1 day earlier, you just scale up your infrastructure, and then you can get ready for it, right? And if you're even more cost conscious, you can actually build a lot of auto scaling rules, so that as and when traffic comes, your infrastructure goes up. So you are kind of optimizing a lot on your infrastructure costs. So I think that's very, very critical. And the scale down part is also much easier. For example, if I'm looking at a database, if you're using one of the managed databases, now if I have to upgrade the instance, I do a right click and say upgrade, and then the whole database infrastructure becomes double or whatever size you want it to be, right? And it's very easy to scale down. You can do the reverse and it scales down. In traditional times, when I've upgraded to a larger DB server, most probably I would not scale down, because the whole effort and the process is so complex that I would say, okay, I probably need it next year as well. Let me just run on the larger DB instance. Then a lot of these platforms give you a separation between disk and compute. This is very cool, because what happens is that you can upgrade your instance without even worrying about changing the application, because your disk is separated out. And then you can, there are a lot of other things, like you can save the state, right? One more interesting thing which comes with cloud computing as a part of those infrastructure as a service, or a platform as a service, software as a service, is you get a lot of these managed services. So instead of running your own DB, or instead of running your own maybe a pub subsystem, you actually have managed services, and you can actually just use that service directly without worrying about actual management and infrastructure of that. So I think databases are fairly common. I think most companies who move to cloud move to a hosted database system. So then all the overheads of having a team to manage the database, having a team to look at whether the replication between your master and between masters or master and slave is actually is running properly. All of that infrastructure or operational overhead just goes away, and then you can use it as a service. And with these managed services, it's a lot easier to actually combine and build your pipelines together. And I think one interesting example was, which we did something in Zivame. So we wanted to build our entire data pipeline. Traditionally, building a data pipeline would actually be like like 3 to 4 months of exercise. You would, again, install various systems. You would ensure they're all talking to each other and connecting. With the cloud, you already know what are some of the common systems. You'll actually get a script which will actually spawn up all the infrastructure for you. So you can just take that script, run it, and then all your infrastructure and your pipelines are already set up, and it just works out of the box. Right? And because you're always doing pay as you go, so the ROI for especially smaller companies and startup companies on cloud computing is immense, because you don't need to worry about over provisioning. You don't have to worry about setting up your data centers, etc. So it's a lot easier, and it's much better ROI. And even when you look at scale up and scale down for larger companies, when you take that example as well, then the ROI for cloud computing is a lot better. So essentially, you're moving to a much better architecture. You're moving to a much better system, and your costs are also going down. So it's a no-brainer. However, every good thing also has some challenges. So what are the challenges with cloud computing? Right? I think the most important one is you need to be very disciplined, because now it's very easy for you to increase your infrastructure. For example, if your database is showing higher CPU, instead of spending time to optimize queries, you might say, okay, let me just upgrade the DB and then I'll figure that out later. And then what ends up happening is that now you've doubled the cost of your database, or you've increased your cost of your database substantially, which you could have actually just optimized a few queries and not done that. So that discipline has to be put into the system. Right? Again, I think it's very important to keep a very close eye on your cloud billing. So while it's cheaper, but if you're not careful, cost can actually just spiral out. People in because it's very easy to provision infrastructure, you might have a lot of people who are just provisioning infrastructure and then forget to switch it off, or even provision stuff when it's not needed. When you're looking at your cloud costs, it's not just especially if you're moving to cloud, right? It's not just the infrastructure cost, because with cloud you also pay for data and bandwidth. And at some time that actually becomes a very significant portion of your bills. So when you're looking at what your cloud spends are going to be, please provision for both infrastructure as well as for the data transfer costs. The other thing is that once you are at a very large scale, then what you will actually see that some of these cloud vendors may actually become a little expensive for you. Right? So managed services, for example, a hosted database is very good to some extent, but once you reach a very large scale, then it might be cheaper to just have the infrastructure and run your own databases. The other one is that because these are hosted systems, the amount of visibility and detail that you get, that may be not enough while you're trying to debug certain things, because you will only have a limited access to what you can on the systems. Right? And I think with cloud, you end up losing access, or end up losing touch with the low-level systems. I think because earlier everyone used to work on bare metal, everyone used to work on building stuff from scratch, there was a lot more awareness and there was a lot more rigor into those things. Now, because a lot of these things are managed, even when you look at the new set of system engineers or admins, right? You see that a lot of them are now, they may not know the deep levels because there's not enough opportunity to do that, because everything is managed by the clouds. Cool. So let's jump into how do you actually do the journey on migration into cloud. Right? So first of all, you have to choose which cloud you want to go to. I think this is just the Gartner slide. So typically you choose the best ones in the top left region, top right region. Those are the people, those are the cloud providers whom you can go with without too much of risk. Then these are like 7 strategies for moving to cloud. So we'll talk about these in a bit more detail. Right? So first one is rehosting. So this is very straightforward. You basically have your on-prem system or you have your systems available. You just pick those up and you move the same to the cloud. Right? So this is basically an e-commerce company. Whatever they had on-prem, they just did a full lift and shift, and they moved everything onto the cloud. Right? Myntra actually did this. So we moved from on-prem systems to Azure. The other one is re-platforming. This is basically doing sort of lift and shift, but you actually use some of the managed services around. Oops, I think this is, sorry. Then you have repurchasing. I think this is very interesting. What this means is that you actually completely move out of it and use a different system. So you had you had your on-prem system. Maybe you find a SaaS platform or you find a PaaS platform, and you just use that directly. Right? So if you have your own hosted CRM system, you just move to Salesforce. Then I think this is what, when you say moving to cloud or digital transformation, this is what most organizations or most people think about. And this is one of the more expensive ways to get there, right? That is basically you look at what your on-prem system is, and then you look at what all is available on the cloud, and you kind of re-architect and move, sorry, 5 minutes? I'll just quickly finish. So you basically re-architect and move stuff and move it onto the cloud. The last ones are retire. So basically you look at whatever tools you have and do you really need them or not, right? Because there might be new paradigm, there might be new models for this. Then retain. So you might want to still keep stuff on-prem. For example, maybe because of compliance reasons, maybe moving that to the cloud is expensive. So you might want to keep stuff, not move that on-prem. I think I'll quickly skip, I'll just talk about this one. I think how you approach migration to the cloud is you basically look at how it works best in the company. And the practices that we talked about, you try to find out a mix of those practices, figure out what works best for your organization, and then you plan that accordingly. I'll just let you quickly go through this one in the interest of time. And these are the takeaways. So we are at the golden era of smartphones and internet in India. Digital transformation, you need to do that yesterday. And as a part of your digital transformation, would highly recommend you to try out the cloud. And then based on your organization, based on how things work in your organization, use the divide and conquer approach, identify what are the systems, then choose one of the 7R strategies, and then move with that system. And then as you move to the cloud, you have to ensure that you are focusing on stability and security. I would open up for any questions. Yeah. I think the biggest one, I'll kind of go back a couple of slides. I think I didn't talk a little bit, I can talk a little bit more about this. I think the biggest one is step one. step one and step two. I think as you're moving to cloud, it's very important to figure out, basically kind of divide your whole system into small blocks, and then for each block, identify what is the right strategy to move to the cloud, right? And what works very well is that you can actually try moving some small system to the cloud first to gain experience, then try to move one much more complex system. So you kind of understand the nuances and intricacies of that particular cloud platform versus your on-prem systems. And then and basically then go through planning and migrating and optimizing. I think one of the challenges is that I think the biggest challenge of moving to cloud is even though you plan, even though you do all your due diligence, even though you do all your homework, and then all the cloud providers will be actually telling you that it's smooth, it's very smooth to move to cloud, and you have a lot of examples of companies who have actually done that as well. But it is a very rigorous and a very rigorous and a risky journey, right? Because it's like you're trying to change the wheels of a race car while it's still in motion, right? Change the engine of the race car while it's still in motion. So it is difficult, and I think the important thing is to plan as much as you can, and do some POCs. I think that helps a lot. So if you're trying to do some POCs, that will help you gain experience. That will help to get the team to gain experience. The other thing to be careful about is ensure that your team, your technical team is fully ready to solve problems and is comfortable with cloud. So that's the other one. I think if you're moving from an on-prem to a cloud, typically your security risks, while people feel cloud is less secure or exposes you more, but if you have a tight security in your on-prem system, then you can actually apply similar security mechanisms on the cloud as well. There is some, I would say, on-prem kind of gives you security. You think that you have security by obscurity, but it's not really secure. So one of the differences that you have is if you have an on-prem system, you may have limited access into your infrastructure, and that kind of gives you security. But that's not really the real security, because the moment someone is inside, then everything is open. So those are some of the things you have to be very careful about, that if you're moving to cloud, you have to ensure that you are keeping your servers private, you are ensuring the right firewalls are set up, the right security, access control, the right firewalls, all of that is set up properly. So I think that is one of the most important things when you're moving to cloud.
What strategy you have taken to decide which cloud platform you are select?
Correct. So, so one is, I'm just trying to find my Gartner slide. Yeah. So this is a good starting point. You can look at this and figure out which are the clouds you want to shortlist on. So for example, a lot of people will by default choose between Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Then after that, how you decide between these three is you look at what are some of the managed services that are available. You also look at, I think one important lens to do this is look at your team and see which cloud they're most comfortable with and which skill is more available in the market. Right? So because Amazon has been around for a while, it's a lot easier to find people who have experience with AWS. That is one thing. So I think it's important to look at what all managed services are there and which one your team feels most comfortable in.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Back to what you said about which to choose. See, it mostly depend upon your equipment and requirement. Cost-wise, they are similar. In fact, services-wise, they are similar. It is just just a learning whether you want to learn about Azure or GCP or AWS. They are similar. It's all about the kind of compliances they meet for your industry. If your industry says, okay, these are the compliances, these are the certification, and you come and partner with us. So AWS will come and partner with you and will go to your client with their validation, with their certification, with their compliances. So that is what will make more difference in choosing which is your fit, proper fitment. Rest everything is similar. I mean, they are competing. You know that, right? Mostly.
Yeah, you will find a great overlap. But I think the nuances are in some of those managed services. AWS, because it's been around for a long time, the number of managed services will be more. But for example, if you're thinking of Kubernetes, then Kubernetes is a lot more native to GCP than to AWS. So you'll have to look at what managed services you want and what all is available, and then how the support, etc., for those is.
So I have one last question. Since you come from e-commerce and e-commerce, oh yeah, I'm here. So the question is about how do you manage demand spikes? You know, because e-commerce is all about spikes can be 10x of regular time. Yeah. How do you prepare for it, right size it, and then downsize it? If you can give some insight.
I think with cloud, it's a lot more straightforward. I think I talked about how we used to manage in the on-prem environment, where we used to prepare like 3-4 months in advance, and then we would get the infrastructure and put it into our data centers. With cloud, it's a lot easier. We actually do a lot of load testing. So we get a sense of this is the amount of traffic we want to get, and then you would do a lot of load testing on the platforms to basically see whether it's able to scale, what are the bottlenecks that we have. And with cloud, you can actually have rules which can automatically scale up, but sometimes some of these spikes are so large that you're not able to configure that properly. So you basically do some proactive scaling. So you'll do some proactive infrastructure, and then the rest of it would be auto scaling.